Welcome. I'll try and keep this bit to 20 minutes and have some dialogue and questions. So far there's been lots of engagement with ayahuasca. So I think psychedelics are going to save the world. Western medicine has hit its limits and only psychedelics can save us. Treatment-resistant depression, heroin addiction, alcoholism, complex PTSD in soldiers coming back from Afghanistan, cancer, end-of-life anxiety. Psychedelics are the answer. Psychedelics can rewire your brain. Psychedelics can make you run faster, think better, resolve your sexual dysfunction. Psychedelics will save your marriage. Too late? All right. If you want to talk to your dead grandmother, drink some ayahuasca. Psychedelics can bring peace to the Middle East. One night of psychedelics, 10 years of psychotherapy. Psychedelics are going to save the world. What do you think? Can I get a hell yeah? Amen. Preach, sister. So that's one narrative. Are you familiar with this?
Timothy Leary rises again.
Yes, if only. Timothy Leary, a great reference. Psychedelics have been through various stages and revolutions and cycles. People talk about this as the psychedelic renaissance, a kind of rediscovery in the West of some ancient traditions, and ayahuasca amongst them. There is, of course, another narrative, which is the war on drugs. For my generation, just say no, bring children, you remember that, in the UK, which is that's what I grew up with, a very, very strong psychedelics. The Class A classification states that they can have no clinical purpose whatsoever. There's no point in researching them even. They're not available, whether it's psilocybin or MDMA or ketamine a little bit, but ayahuasca certainly, as a preparation of dimethyltryptamine DMT, is not available for research purposes, which creates some problems for people interested in it as a researcher. So one narrative is that psychedelics will save the world. The other is that psychedelics can only destroy you and have no possible useful effects. That's I set that forward as kind of thesis, antithesis, and I hope that this talk will give you something of a synthesis. I hope to provide some kind of balance. A kind of transpersonal dialogue, if you will, between the two positions, and I'm doing that via my study into ayahuasca with 8 people in Peru. First of all, let me tell you, just introduce myself. So I'm Adam Knowles. I'm a psychotherapist in London. I've been researching psychedelics for the past 10 years or so, and my journey with ayahuasca was very much. My research into ayahuasca is very much prompted by my own experiences. So this isn't an autoethnography. Very interested to see some of the presentations yesterday, but it is. Yeah, I mean, I think my boyfriend was a photographer, and there was a great line that every photograph you take is a self-portrait. Every photograph. How could it not be? You framed it. You've decided the subject. You're imbued. Whatever you're looking at, it's you that's looking. That fundamental relationship, and therefore, although I am studying other people, I'm studying 8 other people, it's also about me. An IPA, the methodology I use, I'll say a bit more about that, has an interesting take on that, an interesting stance on what you might call reflexivity. It's a qualitative method. But I've drunk ayahuasca perhaps 50 times, 50 different times across Europe, South America. Those experiences have been wild, transformative for me personally. Me being here is I don't mean being alive. I mean me being here at this conference is part of my relationship with ayahuasca. This you're participating in it. This is a dialogue with ayahuasca. The plants, as so many of the talks have said, this idea that we're separate from nature, or we're operating on it. This kind of consumerist, transactional stance isn't one that, I feel like I've been instructed by ayahuasca itself. Some talk about ayahuasca as a grandmother character, inducted into this way of seeing the world, very different worldview, and indeed ontological shock or different worldviews coming through from ayahuasca experiences quite from. For those, let me just cover it. I suspect all of you already know this, but ayahuasca is a traditional Amazonian plant medicine brew. It's a dark brown liquid. Maybe I'll switch to the next slide here. That when drunk, so there it is. When drunk, it's 50 to 100 millilitres. If you were to leave a bottle of red wine out for 6 weeks, just the dregs, and then drink it, have you ever done that? Just to see how I'm sure it'll be alright. 10 times that is about the taste of ayahuasca. Some of you have drunk it, I'm sure. Here's the vine. So it's Vanistiliopsis coccapi. So ayahuasca actually means two things. It means the vine is the name of the vine, and it means the name of the drink, amongst other things. So the preparation is actually a combination of the leaves of this Psychotria viridis bush, which aren't shown here, and the ayahuasca vine, the kind of bark of the ayahuasca vine. And you may be familiar with stories of people throwing up. Vomiting is quite popular in ayahuasca ceremonies. It is popular. It's encouraged in the traditions I've heard. And that's because the bark is very irritative. That's not good. Irritating to the stomach. There's 100 different ways to take ayahuasca. There's the Santo Daime tradition that drink in the daytime with the lights on, and there's dancing and music, and it's a much lighter. Like with olive oil, you get kind of extra virgin olive oil. That's the first pressing. It's lighter and greener, and then you get kind of other pressings. The different traditions use different brews. How long do you brew your cup of tea for? So there's not one way of doing this. There's different traditions and styles across the different indigenous groups, and that's before you get to neo-shamanic versions of this. So I got a plane from London via Lima to Iquitos, and then a 3-hour boat into the middle of the Amazon jungle with the Ayahuasca Foundation. If I expanded that, you'd just see more trees. There's just trees forever. There are no roads. The only way to get here is by boat. If you start walking, you'll just get lost and meet a tarantula and snakes. It's almost a feeling being trapped, actually, and not just at the Ayahuasca Foundation, but at other retreats that are set up. So it's a very insular, group-based, intensive experience. And there's me on a tributary to the Amazon River with one of our guides, one of the indigenous facilitators. And so you've got this synthesis of north and south, west and east, if you like. As that boat is full of Americans, and in my study there were 5 Americans and 3 Brits, and then myself. So this Westerners having an adapted version of an indigenous tradition, and combinations of this kind of Buddhist, Hindu mythology mixed in. It's this kind of syncretic thing. The ceremony. Maybe I'll go back to that slide actually. The ceremony is you sit in a circle like this, you have a mattress, you have a bucket and some toilet roll for obvious reasons, and you the way I do it in the Shipibo style is in complete darkness. So they turn the power generator off and you're off grid to start with. And then they blow a candle out, and you're plunged into a kind of transcendent darkness that's difficult to describe. You can't tell whether your eyes are open or closed. Sensorily, it makes absolutely no difference. And then that's part of the visionary experience. So, this is what I wanted to study. I wanted to see what my experiences were compared to others, and I did semi-structured interviews, about an hour, with 8 people at 3 different time points before, during, and after, broadly. And then there were some ethnographic aspects because I was on retreat with these people. This was at Birkbeck, University of London, and I feel pretty lucky that they approved this. I got it past ethics somehow, and indeed, it was safe enough for these purposes. This wasn't a retreat I arranged. I was a participant observer, and this was kind of insider research. IPA, I won't say too much about it, maybe you'll hear more from Kurt later about IPA as well. It's a qualitative experiential research methodology based around three principles: hermeneutics, phenomenology, and ideography. Hermeneutics is the study of meanings and interpretations through human communication and expression. Phenomenology is, in a Heideggerian sense and a Husserlian sense, about the appearance of things, how we know truth, how we can access truth via what presents itself, via phenomena. And that includes the body, it includes visions, it's kind of what happens, it's a descriptive thing about what happens. Then ideography is a move in IPA away from thematic analysis in a way. Although IPA does look for themes, it's interested in individuals first. You're looking at a whole person as almost a meaning-making unit, a universe of themselves, rather than just looking at so there's no mind maps, there's no word clouds necessarily in the way I did it anyway. You look very closely in detail at one person at a time, and then you come back up to group themes. I'll just skip to the chase really here. As I say, I want to leave some time for questions. The group themes, one side looked at the individuals and looked at their what we call personal experiential themes. We then start to thematise across the group of 8 people. And this is what I came up with 2. So far, this is mid-process. Ayahuasca showed me visions, and I've put brackets dialogue for the purposes of this conference, because I think that's what I mean by visions. I mean contact with, some people would say, plant spirits, entities they can appear in various forms. It can feel like you're having a word with yourself, and that can feel like intuition or connection to self, but it can absolutely feel that you're having a word with a spiritual grandmother, or being abducted by aliens, and the aliens are operating on you, 20-foot-high aliens. On a kind of spaceship. And in some of the cases of participants, those visions were meaningful to positive change in terms of their career, particularly relationships, addictions. One of my participants was alcoholic, amongst other things. And then IPA also looks for differences and kind of within group differences. And one of the other things that happened is that generally a lot of my participants were first timers. And it's interesting, you're doing the tarot, right? And there's a lot of symbology, and I don't know, do you find this, that the skill of thinking symbolically isn't widespread, right? And I find this with clients as well. And that's really relevant to ayahuasca, because I think the ayahuasca experience works symbolically. The number of times I've had as a psychotherapist, people come to me and say, ayahuasca showed me X, and then they take it very literally. One of my participants, for instance, was shown that a male friend she's in her mid-30s, kind of looking for love, to get serious, in her own words. And ayahuasca showed her that this guy who lived in New York was going to be her husband. So she obediently gets on a plane after the retreat and goes to see him and says, ayahuasca showed me that we're meant to be together, you're my soulmate. This is it. Like, I really think, I want to take this seriously. I've always thought of you as a friend, but we're really meant to be together. And he's just like, no, that's not going to happen. It's not happening. And she was like, oh. So it requires this, and I think that's where a psychotherapist can come in, a group can come in, but something that expands it into a more holistic sense of. That participant also saw her father dying, and at the T3, it turns out she understands that means that she's worried about her dad's mortality, not that he's literally about to drop dead in the next 2 weeks, which is what she thought at first. So, how are you for time? I was just going to talk about the first theme a little bit more. I mean, I've already said a bit more about the participants, really, but in terms of ayahuasca showed me, so the second theme was about relationships. This surprised me, there were a couple of dyads. There was a mother and son who came to ayahuasca together, so as a kind of coming of age ritual for him, because the West is lacking in rituals. And then other people were looking for group connections and group experiences. But this is just to show you a few quotes about, as I say, the details. So Jean, in her 60s, pregnancy educator. At T1, she's saying there was a lot about before retreat, a lot about my mum, why she was the way she was when we were children. Had a difficult relationship with her mum, basically, and was unsure what to do with this. On retreat, she had a vision of being held in somebody's hand as a tiny baby, wasn't quite visible, didn't look like a baby, it just, for me, it was me as a baby. And so this is how people talk. You see how confusing it is, it's quite dreamlike. And my mum and dad give me love. So she had almost a corrective experience here in T2, this Ayahuasca vision. And it is Ayahuasca showing me, this has appeared as a dreamscape for her. And then later, what difference does it make? That was a big question for me. Like, the internet is full of people having wild psychedelic experiences, but does it make any difference longer term? Is it therapeutic? Is it 10 years of therapy? And Jean said, I was able to recognise where my mum was coming from. She had much greater empathy for her mother. That's one of the things I've been working on since I came back, is my relationship with her. I can show compassion. So there's a couple of, I have Clara, I have Dane, but I'll try and leave some space for some engagement and some questions here. But that's what I have to say about Ayahuasca. Thank you.
We've got plenty of time for questions and engagement and Philip.
Well-run retreats will have a sustainable supply where they're planting and growing the vine. The problem then is that because although I showed it as one thing, there's actually red ayahuasca, brown ayahuasca, green ayahuasca, there's different varieties. I'm not, my boyfriend's a horticulturalist, so he does scientific names and things, but I imagine there are different cultivars or something within the ayahuasca. But then there's the age of the vine, and they prefer the older vines. The older vines are seen as wiser, so the brew that comes from older vines. And of course, that you can see the problem that's going to come. So is it being over-harvested? Yes. Is it, you can order it on the internet if you want. Where is that coming from? How sustainable is that supply is a huge question, and it's absolutely right. It comes into all of the climate crisis and what's happening with the extraction from the rainforest. So that was my personal thing. The idea of a bunch of Westerners taking flights to go over to... One solution to that is that instead you can ship the shaman over from Peru, right? That's a straightforward one. Rather than 30 people go to the rainforest, you bring the... And that happens quite a lot. The mushroom question. I absolutely felt personally that... they call it dieting. They call it dieting the plant. So we're talking to somebody about microdosing, but it's like dieta. So you can diet ayahuasca, but you can also diet blue lotus. You can diet mushroom. Any plant material. I mean, I'm kind of dieting peppermint tea at the moment. It's this communication. It's this ongoing relationship with a plant or fungi material. Ashwagandha, lion's mane for me as well. And the facilitators were Norwegian, and they were talking about pine. And I thought I'd really like to diet, and I intend to diet pine. The way they do it is they drink ayahuasca to open the channels, and then you drink pine for the rest of the time. So you see, this is not complicated. I almost have two responses to that in relation to this as well. One is that I think that there is a lot to be said for local. I almost want to say we've co-evolved. If you're on the on Dartmoor, and you pick up the mushrooms from Dartmoor, there's a sense of hundreds of years at least of history that's embodied in my DNA that connects to the co-evolution of that mushroom that doesn't apply with ayahuasca. And then on the other hand, when I've drunk ayahuasca, I can drink it in Croydon, and I'm in the rainforest. And that sense that, your sense of geography is too narrow, not yours, but, one's sense of geography is like, and ayahuasca transcends all of that because it's all the connected web of life. It's almost a this plane of existence versus that plane of existence, the kind of normal reality and the transpersonal, holding those both in mind, that time and space are very different in ayahuasca, suffice to say. Jean, for instance, she started the retreat saying, I'll do anything once. I'm 65, I'm a bit, I'm too old for this shit. I'll do anything once. I'm going to fly to Peru, I'm going to take ayahuasca and see what happens, right? And then afterwards she's saying, I think I'll do it again. And that was, and Clara as well, as an ongoing practice, right? So the reason I'm saying that is because for a lot of people it's an ongoing journey, and I think you can start. I was incredibly naive when I first drank ayahuasca, and the plant taught me what work I needed to do to approach ayahuasca. And the more I took up its offers, the more it's a dance, you know, the more it gave me. So I'm not saying that you have to do a bunch of work first, a load of psychotherapy to prepare to be ready to drink the ayahuasca. Actually what happens, if people aren't ready, and this is a transpersonal view maybe, just nothing happens. Right? You drink ayahuasca, you say, I'm ready to meet, you know, come on, give me I'm ready for an ego death experience. And Africa just kind of looks at you and goes, just no interest, you know. So there's got to be that connection, but you learn that in relationship with the plant. And the plant, if you have the ears for it, the plant will teach you what you need to know. And that for me has led to a variety of other things: yoga, breath work, psychotherapy. So now ayahuasca is just one strand of my vine amongst other wellness practices, to put it one way. But you can either start with ayahuasca or end with ayahuasca. It kind of doesn't care, but it's part of it. It's a network for me. Hearing their direct words is really important. That's why these slides are here. Clara was a child therapist from the north of the UK, shifting from. She was very dependent on alcohol. And in a sense, she shifted her dependence to ayahuasca. She said beforehand, I wanted more understanding of who I was and why. AA didn't give me the answers, and she'd heard about ayahuasca, maybe like some of you are, for the first time, and then decided to revisit it. Her experience, so this is kind of on retreat, so I interviewed people the day after. She said, I just lost all control of my body, my face was melting into the mattress, sitting myself up to go, okay, I can sit up, I have a head, I know where I am. Her voice was like an angel, and it was me as a tiny girl, and I had to go towards it, just let my heart go. Whatever this was that I was clinging on to, just stop and let it out. I cried and cried and cried from my belly and rocked. It felt really sad and like loss, but such relief at the same time. So you see there's ups and downs, a bit of a roller coaster. And then 6 months later, I feel ready now to start concentrating properly. So it connects to your question actually. Back on my, build my life back up here at home. At T1, she thinks, I've got to go to the jungle, I've got to do all this stuff, I've got to purge all this stuff. It sort of happens, and then she's like, oh, I've done that, you know, now I can settle here. Does that answer, give you a bit of... I intentionally don't mention integration because, and I'll replay the answer I said over the dinner table last night, which is, for me, it's my whole life. You know, me existing is me integrating my ayahuasca experiences. And that's not to dismiss anyone who does integration, but it's not, I don't want to kind of hide it off as if it's, I'm not saying you are, but some people talk about a 6-week process or a year, or for me it's a whole lifetime. I'm going to spend trying to understand my ayahuasca experiences. But to answer your direct question, the retreat offered, as is typical for retreats like this, there's a couple of group meetings online beforehand, there's the retreat itself, and then there's maybe one group meeting afterwards and then a WhatsApp group, right? Is that insufficient? Broadly, yes. But, you know, the Psychedelic Society offer free integration groups. There's psychedelic therapists like myself you can go and see. But people do have to find their own way from there rather than it being a prescribed set of things, generally at the moment. As a corporate bore, you know, I had a 20-year career in technology before ayahuasca. I was just, I want to say the Matrix or something. I was working in IT. I retrained as a therapist. My whole life it's been a radical and quite complete transformation. It's not as straightforward as I took ayahuasca retrain. It was amongst other things, as I say, but it was very much part of, and I do credit ayahuasca with some really significant parts of me saying, you know what, with this one wild and precious life, I need to stop doing that, just, you know, trying to earn a 6-figure salary in London. I need to not do that. Like, I need to change something here, and I did, and I've never looked back.
And on that profound